Hello, and welcome to another episode of She Talks Business. Today, we're going to talk about money. We are going to talk about 7 things that small business owners really should know about money. And this is important stuff. This is good stuff. This is rich stuff. So grab a pen and a piece of paper and listen in because I have some notes here. I've been preparing because I really want listeners of this show to learn about money, learn about numbers, and be more comfortable talking about this stuff because I think that there is a lot of shame and guilt and misunderstanding when it comes to the metrics in your business. So, number one thing you should know about money is cash flow is crucial. It is super important that you have a solid understanding of cash flow. Cash flow essentially refers to the amount of money coming in and going out of your business. Think of it as understanding the timing of money. Cash flow and profit are not the same thing, and a lot of business owners mix them up. They look at the amount of money that they have in the bank and they think that that is their profit. And really, the amount of money that you have in the bank right now, today, is just a snapshot in time, and it is the cash flow that you have available to you. But that cash flow doesn't take into consideration everything that you have to pay for in the months to come, the weeks to come. It doesn't take into consideration the taxes you owe. So some of that money may very well be profit, but if you don't understand the flow of money, you don't understand how money flows in and how money flows out, you can make some pretty bad decisions in terms of spending your cash flow and find yourself in a situation where you don't have money to pay yourself. You don't have money to make payroll for your team. You don't have money to pay your taxes, or maybe you don't have money to pay your bills. And that's when you end up behind on your bills. And that creates a lot of stress and pressure for business owners. So understanding cash flow is a super important thing. And understanding the difference between cash flow and profit is really important. So let's talk about profit because it's not the only metric. Profit is the end result in your business on a monthly or annual basis. So essentially, you would look at January 1st to January 31st, and you would see your sales and your expenses, and then you would see what your profit is. Your profit tells you how your business performed during a period of time. And while it is super important, it's not the only metric that you want to look at. You also want to keep a lookout. You also want to keep a look at things like gross margin, cash flow, which we just talked about, and even return on investment. So if you are investing money in something in your business, how do you know that it's generating a profit for you? When you're pricing things, how do you know that the gross margin is high enough to support the operational costs of your business? These are all things that are super important. Now, I know a lot of you probably get to the end of the year and your accountant says to you, oh, your business made X amount of dollars in profit last year. You owe Y on taxes. And you may be wondering, where the heck did that money go? There's a good chance if you get to the end of the year and you owe money on taxes and you don't have the money in your bank account to pay those taxes, that you spent your profit. You spent your profit because your profit was mixed in with your cash flow, and therefore so is the money that you owed in taxes, which leads me to point number 3, which is a super important thing for business owners to know and do, and that is budgeting. When you have a budget can help you track expenses. It can help you to prioritize spending. And most importantly, it can help you to forecast where you're going to end up. When I look at my business, I am always tracking sales, I'm tracking wage cost, I'm tracking all other expenses, and I'm tracking profit. Not only am I tracking those things on a monthly basis, but I am projecting those things into the future so that I can anticipate where we're going to end up. That's how you budget effectively. When somebody says, oh, we need to hire an extra person, if you haven't done that type of budgeting and forecasting in your business, you may make a decision to hire that leaves you in a deficit because you didn't really understand your numbers. Another place where budgeting is really important is when it comes to taxes. When you are collecting money from your customers, some of that money is yours and some of it is not. So it's super important that you understand and you can predict what you owe in taxes. So number 4, taxes are really important. You need to be aware of your obligations when it comes to tax, whether it's income tax, state tax, payroll tax, provincial tax, or any other relevant taxes. In Canada, you have source deductions for payroll. You have HST, which is a tax. You have federal tax. You might have provincial tax. You want to make sure that you know what they are. In the United States, I have state taxes, I have payroll taxes, and I have corporate tax. Understanding what your tax obligation is important. Understanding when installment taxes are due is important too, because the more you owe in tax, the more you will pay in interest if you don't make those installment payments. So even if you choose, you want to be a little rebellious, you don't want to give the government their money too soon, you choose that you want to hang on to your tax money. That's all fine and dandy, but you might want to get it out of your main bank account. You might want to put it into a secondary bank account so that you don't accidentally spend money that isn't yours. You want to also have a really good tax advisor in your corner. You want to be able to call somebody up and say, hey, my profit looks like it's going to be X this year. What are some things that I can do to minimize taxes? Sometimes your CPA can be a good tax advisor, and sometimes you need an actual financial or tax strategist to help you. Here's the thing. You're going to have to pay taxes. So don't think you're not going to have to pay taxes. You will have to pay taxes. So it's important that you save for those taxes. And if you aren't saving, then it's really important that you have a really good amount of cash flow on hand so that when those taxes are due, you have the money to pay them. And it's important that you can predict how much you think you're going to have to pay so that your taxes don't wipe out your cash flow. I remember one year thinking I was all tickety-boo. I was doing really great. I get to the end of the year and my accountant told me I think I owed $40,000 or $60,000 in tax for the previous year. Well, that was a lot of money. In fact, it was almost all the money I had in my bank account because that's before I was predicting and planning for taxes. You can get yourself out of that cycle, but you need to do it by budgeting and setting the money aside so that you have it. The other thing I want to talk about is paying taxes means you're actually making money. So don't spend it on silly things to avoid paying taxes. Find somebody who can advise you on the best way to mitigate tax. And in some cases, it may actually be the structure of your business. There are a lot of legal things you can do to minimize what you have to pay in taxes. But a lot of times, business owners don't ask people who have expert tax advice the best way to do that. I've learned a lot about this in the United States, the difference between a C Corp and an S Corp and how taxes are handled. Just like in Canada, the difference between a corporation versus a sole proprietorship. You want to understand what the impact is, and you want to be able to project what you expect your company to do long-term in profit so that you've got the right structure surrounding your business entity to help you minimize your tax obligations. Number 5, you want to invest wisely. Whether you're investing in, real estate, mutual funds, RSPs, bonds, other assets, second mortgages, you want to do something with your money so that your money can make you money. If you start to accumulate money in your business, guess what? The banks don't exactly pay business accounts a high interest rate. So if you've got a decent amount of money sitting in your bank account, you want to learn what are some of the things that you could do with that money to make more money. Now, before you go out and you invest money, you also need to do your due diligence. You need to understand the risk and the rewards before you invest all of your money. And you need to be prepared that sometimes some of your investments may not pay off. So don't invest money that you can't afford to lose. Do your homework when it comes to investing. The 6th thing is financial reporting. And financial reporting on a regular basis is crucial. You should be looking at your company's P&L on a monthly basis. You should be looking at not only your P&L on a monthly basis, but your month this year over your month last year. You should also be looking at year to date. Where are you at year to date this year versus year to date last year? And then you want to do some of that forecasting so you can start to predict where your business is going to end up. Financial literacy is a really important part of running a successful business. And a lot of business owners kind of shy away from it. They don't want to learn it. They don't want to look at it. They don't want to admit that maybe they've made some bad decisions with money. But if you don't look at it and you don't know what's going on because you don't have the reporting, that's like flying your plane blindfolded when you're about to land. You don't know if there's another plane on the tarmac. You don't know if there's a truck there. You don't know if you're landing on water, or if you're landing on land. So take the blindfold off when it comes to the financial reporting in your business and learn to love your numbers. Learn to understand what they mean. You as a business owner can make decisions that will change the financial outcome of your business, but you can't make those decisions objectively if you don't understand what's going on in your business. Last but not least, I think this is an important thing to talk about when it comes to money. And I know that some people will say, yeah, easy for you to say because you have some, but having money doesn't make you happy. What money does is it buys you peace of mind and it gives you freedom of choice. And that's a really good thing to have. But if you're chasing money and you're doing things that are not aligned with your integrity, or they don't feel good to you, or they leave you feeling completely energetically depleted, then you're not going to be happy. So when you're on your quest to achieve a wealthier and healthier financial position in your life, it would be a really nice thing if you could create and structure a business that you actually enjoyed working in. It would be really great if you surrounded yourself with people you enjoyed working with. And that means employees and customers. There's no point making money if you're going to be completely stressed and you're going to be completely burned out and you're going to make yourself sick in the process, because then all that money that you've made is really just going to pay for you to get well. So don't sacrifice your overall well-being for the almighty dollar. Figure out a way to make money, keep money, invest money, and understand money, and do it in a way that makes you happy. It is possible to run a business, to work with people you enjoy working with, and to serve customers that you like being around, and to do it doing a job that you enjoy. If you can find that, you're better to be happy 365 days of the year than to have money in the bank and hate what you do every single day of the week. You don't want the Sunday scaries in your business. You want to wake up motivated on Mondays to go get it. And that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be days where you don't love your business, but you want there to be more days that you enjoy what you do than not. And money and numbers, it's an important part of your business. No one gets into business because they want to make less money than when they were an employee. No one gets into business to trade 4 quarters for $1. People get into business in order to build something that they can be proud of and to hopefully create a financial impact for their life and their family that they can be proud of. So rule number 1, go back to point number 1, which is understand cash flow. Understand what it means. Understand that profit isn't the only metric, but it's definitely an important one, and learn how to budget. Because when you learn how to budget with those financial reports, you really can build something that is built to last, and you can be proud of it and you can accumulate wealth at the same time. Thanks for listening to 7 things you should know about money. I'll talk to you again next week.